story takes place almost exactly at this time of year, early April, and it concerns my decision to start a garden in the back of my 4-bedroom Ashburn home. I remember this one early, maybe Saturday morning, coming out onto the deck overlooking this backyard, coffee cup in hand. The air started turning a little humid. You know how it gets humid in April, but it's still cool. You can tell the spring is right around the corner, that energy. But I was looking at this really undeveloped, sorry piece of land. Not much was going on there. Just some grass and some trees. And I thought, man, I should do something here. I should maybe put a swing set in, or maybe put some flowers in. I mean, what a waste of space this is. I mean, this is not really a usable land. There's something deserves to be here. I discussed the idea with the wife, who in principle was in agreement. Yeah, we should do something there, but we never really saw eye to eye on the details. But we knew where the project was headed, right? So all we needed was just the right time and the right motivation. And the right time came in March of 2020, or as I like to call it, COVID year one. Now, I wasn't a gardener prior to COVID, so I needed a little bit of help. And I found that help on YouTube thanks to this character, Master Gardener, Gardener Scott. Gardener Scott put together a really nice series of videos about growing your own food. I liked and I subscribed. I thought his content was phenomenal. So the first project, the first sort of step in the process was, let's just grow something, right? I wanted to get started. We just got into lockdown and we were just getting over the shock of staying home. I wanted to get going. And there was this old sandbox in the back. And I thought, why don't I just upgrade that? I'll turn that into a raised garden bed. I'll, just do something there, plant something real quick. So I did that. I took out the play sand and put some topsoil in, put some cucumbers in, and I thought my garden was ready to go. Or so I thought. Because as my instructor, Gardener Scott, started talking, I started learning a lot more about things like pests and animals and things that want to eat your garden, fungi and things like that. And I wanted to protect my investment, So I put some posts around this sandbox, now a cucumber patch, and I wrapped it with chicken wire. But then I thought, let's do a little bit something extra. Just as a kicker, I'm going to play an electrician. So there were some spotlights in the back of the house, just lightning. I thought I'll just replace them. I replaced them with a Ring camera system, which I trained onto the cucumber patch like a watchful sentry. Make sure that no wasky wabbits or raccoons come in and steal my cucumbers at night. My wife was a bit bemused by this. She thought, really, this is where you're taking your project in a sandbox, like this is where it's going, but okay. Now that summer, my relationship with Gardener Scott grew, and we became something of friends and buddies. And I think he must have come into some YouTube money because the production value improved of the videos, and he found himself in a new home, and there was no garden there. He started building a garden from scratch. So I was learning about building a garden, and I was really inspired and had all this knowledge. So I took this knowledge and I packed it into my car and drove it off to the hardware store and packed my 2014 Highlander with decking screws and lumber and cordless tools and all sorts of materials that I needed so that I could bring it all back. And I did. I brought it back home and I built my first set of big boy 8-foot by 4-foot raised garden beds, properly leveled, well constructed. It was perfect. I filled it all with topsoil and I put in more cucumbers and also tomatoes, which I trellised. It was perfect. I was so proud of myself. Now, the conversation with the wife started getting a little bit more heavy because, you see, money was involved at this point, and not an insignificant amount of money. But I thought, we're in lockdown, it's COVID, and my mother-in-law had just moved in, and I thought that this was kind of an inexpensive way, actually, of expanding. It's kind of like adding an extra room. We could spread out if we wanted to, or we could come together and hang out in there. So I thought this was well worth the investment. Now, if you do want to come together in the garden, you're going to need one extra thing, and that is a fire pit. Now, Scott didn't make videos about building fire pits, so I had to experiment on my own. Okay, I'll get ahead of it. I did screw that project up. I ordered a fire ring from this company in Michigan, built to specifications, which were wrong, by the way, and it wasn't inexpensive. It was actually a very expensive piece of equipment, which I then tried to surround with some decorative stone, which didn't fit because, again, wrong specifications. And then I placed it too close to the house, so HOA and fire hazard and all that stuff. It was a screwed up project. I didn't feel good about myself at all about it, but worst of all, the wife wasn't happy at all about this project. I remember this one moment. She's at the top of the deck just looking at it, and she is seething. I mean, she is not happy about this. I mean, and I wasn't proud. I mean, I wasn't proud about where this was going, but yeah, I really took a beating. I took a beating about that. And there was a moment where I just had completed this thing, and I took this beating, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm done with this project. I'm just going to, what am I doing with this stupid gardening and all this work that I'm putting into it? I'm just going to walk away. But where am I going to go? It's COVID. We're on lockdown. Of course I'm going to finish this up. Besides, I already put all this money into this garden, into this fire pit. I'm going to get it fixed. And I did. I swallowed my ego, fixed it up, I moved it where it was supposed to be, and it was perfect. And guys, the end of that summer, COVID year one summer, I know we were on lockdown, but it was heaven for me. The hanging out in now a usable garden space, and the smell of the smoke billowing from the fire pit, and whatever remained on the vine, some tomatoes. I love the smell of tomatoes. Smell, and cicadas in Virginia. I love that. I spent a lot of that time in that garden, mostly by myself, contemplating, thinking. Now, you'd think the project would be finished, but no, because as fall came, my best friend, gardener Scott, and I, we started planning more. We decided to expand, so I added more garden boxes to the back. Also, the utility room now became a grow house with grow lights and shelving and heat pads and tray of seedlings, which I was getting ready to plant for next year. And by next year, by that summer of COVID year 2, I found myself surrounded by all of this vegetation, and this time insects were coming in, and butterflies and bees. It was a whole ecosystem of beauty and hard work. The wife wasn't around that much at that point anymore. I think she saw how obsessed I was with this project and just how crazy I was. I mean, clearly it was craziness and chaos. I mean, I put so much effort into this and craziness, and so she was avoiding it altogether, which is fine because you see, my business partner, gardener Scott, and I, we thought that there was an extra step we needed to take, and that was to install irrigation. So I tapped into zone 6 of the irrigation line running through the backyard. No joke. I trenched piping into each of the boxes, some of my guests know this, so that I could water them overnight. And so there I was, in my perfectly curated, designed, built, loved, irrigated, tended to garden. And I sat down by the fire pit, and I took my wedding band off, my wedding ring, and I set it on the edge. That was the end of the garden, the end of the project. We sold the house the next year. Today, we happily co-parent a beautiful 10-year-old. And I live in a town next door, in Herndon. I rent a house, and it has a backyard and a fire pit. I'm not going crazy, but I did put some planters out and grew some flowers in them. And a family of birds moved in last year and built a nest. And I watched as those birds had some babies, and they hatched and they flew. And I thought, man, you can grow a garden anywhere. Thank you very much.
Sight is the end of the world as we know it.